painted like an anti-hero in this one, right? Like he's not a bad guy, but
right. But that's
he does kill some people. So
I mean, so I don't know about you guys, but where I come from, that
Morbius,
makes you a bad
Morbius. I think you said Morbius, like it's a spin-off from the Matrix.
Oh,
I didn't know.
No, Jared Leto becoming a vampire somehow.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Through science.
Yeah,
through science. I was right there.
I was disappointed that he didn't have the hand suckers because that just sets it apart.
Yes,
you know, it's different.
What?
Right. Yes, different doesn't always make it better. We're looking at you, Blade 2. You know, so
Blade 2 is the best Blade.
Blade 2 is weird. It didn't belong in that.
Like,
theory.
I think the best part about Blade 2, I mean, like Wesley Snipes, obviously, I feel like they did a pretty good job with Blade in general. But that was the one with Ron Perlman, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ron Perlman's like, you know, he's up there. You know,
he's just being Ron Perlman. He's just being the same character. He almost always is.
That's fine.
It's fine. It is fine. But that's a weird one. Doesn't belong with the others.
I didn't like 3 either, but for different reasons. You know, I think if you go in
3 is not that great.
Yeah, I think if you go into battle with earplugs in, you deserve to get eaten by a vampire.
Yeah,
so
3 has Parker Posey being batshit insane. So
I'm not saying there aren't good parts of it. You know, like, you know, it's got eye candy out of all of the other movies comparatively, but you know, like, so I was the right age for her, so it's fine. You know, but.
Underworld, that was.
That was
eye candy.
She's the top of my list, just so we're clear. So anyway, we could digress into even more things, but like, you know, the wife understands that, and she has pointed her out to me, and she's like, isn't she like your favorite? And I'm like, I'm still sane, you know, in the presence of other women or whatever. But it's like, I think she's like, if Justin could find somebody to be like alone, like trapped on an island with, she'd be at the top of the list. And like,
you know what,
yeah,
we watched Arrival, and I know that seems like a weird segue from what you're saying,
right?
But for us, it's Amy Adams, and she gives me so much grief about Amy Adams. She's like, I was just fangirling over. Oh, Amy Adams is such a good actress. Oh, she's such a good actress.
Yeah,
she's a good actress, but
she's great in Arrival, specifically.
And it's a great movie, but it's like this puts together. You said your wife is red. You have a thing for redheads. Okay,
I'm just saying. I guess
look at his beard.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
So
nothing wrong. Just learning things I didn't expect to learn about you.
Yeah, I actually didn't realize we were recording at the time.
We're 3 minutes in.
I tell you what, I mean, I understand. Redheads are something.
Yeah.
Hey, don't talk about my wife like that.
Yeah. It's like, and then there's just a whole country of them out there. Like, it's crazy. So
I can't believe we're talking about
this. Right. How about comforting topic change, perhaps? Of let's actually do the subject.
Yes.
Let's dive into Cinder Spires again.
0 redheads, except for maybe Lord Albion. He's a redhead, isn't he? So
I thought he was brown hair.
Okay, well, I tried.
What color is Gwen's hair?
She's very blonde, isn't she? Like,
I don't remember.
Yeah. Like, she just struck me as like I guess they call her a porcelain doll. I left the book in the other room.
Kind of implies that maybe it's dark hair. Ralph's ginger, so that's who Ben's going to be enamored of.
There you go.
I pictured her as like a big strong woman with red hair, kind of.
Wait,
Gwen?
No, sorry, not Gwen. Ralph's
Bridget. Bridget has
it's
brown
right
hair.
there on the screen. So you know,
I kind of imagined her as a redhead, even though she's not.
And I could see it, you know, going, you know, more. What's the word? Is it auburn? I'm looking for the one where it's like trends to red or something. But, you know, as I display. But she kind of fits that stereotypical. Like she would be the farmer's daughter if you know they had farms.
She's the closest thing they've got because batteries and. Her superpower is that she's kind of strong because she dealt with the batteries and the meat and the lifting, and it's like
she's like what's his face from Hunger Games, right? Like
what's his face?
PETA.
Oh,
strong because she did manual work,
and he was strong because he read
sacks of flour, dragged them around. a lot.
That's
Okay.
fair. Yeah,
It's been
I
a
do
long time
remember
since
that
I
being a thing.
read those. So.
I just read the first one for the first time recently, like last week, and so that's why I remember it. And yeah, they're like the whole like the rich districts has this advantage that they're stronger and well fed, and he is from a poor district but has the same advantage because he's a baker's son and he got a lot of workout and got a lot of food.
Okay.
And she's she's had plenty of protein. She's been dragging big meat vats around, but like here it's like there's no. I don't get the impression that there are anybody lacking as such in the towers. At least not in our tower.
Well, possibly, but also could just be that we haven't seen them because the people that we're focused on do kind of come from highborn stock, and so even as poor as the Tagman family is, Bridget still is a pretty okay situation.
They can still buy a wood counter.
Yeah.
Presumably not everybody can do that. But yeah, and we have only seen in Tower Albion Landing and Morning, the two richest Hebbles.
Yeah.
Who knows how it is in maybe like the complete middle where there's probably the least amount of trade. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Habel Landing is rich, but they've got big city problems, right? Because it's like talk about the organized crime and all of that stuff. So like I'm pretty sure
got his hands in there anyway.
Right. I'm pretty sure that Habel Landing has, rat on a stick, rat burgers somewhere. So, if the cats don't get to him first, I guess, but some equivalent, like
as long as it's not a spider.
Don't they talk about them like not even being palatable to eat? Rowell mostly, I think.
Rowell is
it's like even their blood is like disgusting.
Not even good for eating. How dare they exist?
Yeah, that's the line for sure.
Fair enough.
Which we might get that far today if we get into it.
Get started.
We are 13% through. And I'll take that segue as where we ended and where we're going to start is Grim has been attacked by the Silk Weavers and now needs to be saved by Master Ferris, though he doesn't know it because the poison is in his system. And so as he's falling over and Bayard is like, oh no. And Grim says, this is rather inconvenient. He wakes up in a dark room or kind of like dingy room. It's got all those kind of depleted, the fuck is they called? The crystals, but there's just whatever. Lumen. Candle crystals. I forgot the words that they use.
Lumen crystals.
And he's lumen crystals. Yes. Yeah. And everything just looks very strange and not very normal. And someone's taking his shirt off and he's got bandages all over him and his arm is in a splint. All right. And he's since he's been unconscious for like a day, he starts drinking a whole bunch of water. And then Folly walks in the room, not having introduced herself because she can't. And she's dressed not untidily, but randomly. It's a gray shirt made of ether silk, patched in places, as though it's been tailored for a man almost 200 pounds heavier than she was. It probably was. Right. The shirt was long enough to be a gown. She wore a green gown underneath with rustling skirts that fall to the floor and white polka dot socks on one foot, orange and purple stripes on the other. She's got the candy striped hair because she's the redhead, red and white. It's dyed red and white.
Yeah, she's a candy cane, so.
Yeah, peppermint candy.
Yeah. One thing I really like about Master Ferris and Folly and kind of these, just a couple of the etherealists in general, is how they play with, at least in this book, they play with the very mannered society. It's a very mannered book with a lot of the character dynamics and character fun. It's all about how characters follow or don't follow proper manners. And Ferris, in this society, Ferris seems like just the daughter of an old man. But even more than that, I can imagine how his actions and Folly's actions, their eccentricities, mark them out from society so much more than they would even in ours. Like you see somebody with red and white striped hair, even in San Francisco, that might turn a head, right? But you see it in this society, it's like there's something really wrong with this. There's something almost uncannily wrong because it's unmannered. That's my understanding of how the world works, at least in this book. That's playing around with this idea of being.
Well, yeah, it's a futuristic Victorian kind of society. So it's also it's like you have to think about it. If someone like had the ability to have multicolored hair in Victorian age, would they stand out as a weirdo? Yes, they would. So it's you know, it's not the norm, and I don't know if it's only it, I want to say ectomancer, but that's not what it is. It's
Etherealist.
etherealists that would look so weird, or if there are other weirdos. Again, we've mostly seen this from a high society standpoint, right? We don't know so much about the lower rungs.
Right.
Right. But the description of what the etherealists have to do to stay functional, like Cavendish must be perfectly proper and polite, following all the strict formalities of everything. That includes her appearance of looking like a proper lady. And when in the description of Folly putting herself together for the day, she wears what feels right, even though it doesn't make any sense. And so that might be part of her need to be like functioning at a relatively normal level. Ferris doesn't seem to care whatsoever. But... All right, so Folly is walking into the room. She's surprised that Grimm is awake and can't talk to him directly. He doesn't know this. And so she's talking to like lumen crystals that she has like on a necklace or in her hands. Like, oh, he's awake. Goodness, that's unexpected. He's fine. He's not mad, except that he is, and I should know. And it is awkward because he's wanting to get information and she's just like, should we tell him that it's not proper for him to be staring at a young lady like this? And he's not wearing a shirt.
Right.
But he doesn't know where his shirt is. He thinks I'm a lady. That's quite unusual in my experience. And he gets confused. He's like, wait, it's unusual for you to be called a lady. And she says, thinking.
Yeah. Thinking is unusual.
Yeah. And so they go a little bit back and forth a bit, and he gets the closer look at her face because he tries to grab her and she freezes because she cannot deal with this. She doesn't know how to deal with this. And it is improper for him to do. And she has two different colored eyes. One is an even steady gray and the other one is a pale apple green. I can't tell if that's something that's significant about her being an etherealist of having different colored eyes or it's just a quirk.
I think it kind of fits the general aesthetic of a steampunk, is that heterochromia is a thing people have sometimes, and it's one of the things that steampunk creators latch onto. So it's just part of the general aesthetic that Jim's working with. I don't know. I guess I'm not. I think it's possible to overthink that one.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Folly decides to go tell the master it looks like he'll survive, and then Grimm is in the room not knowing what to do and basically wondering if he should get dressed or not. And then he starts hearing a pounding at the door and rattling, and this guy on the other side says, "Damnation take you," because it used to work.
Right.
And then Folly has to open the door, and she says to the doorknob, "He doesn't mean to hurt your feelings. He's just too brilliant for you." And so Ferris is described as he's scrawny, except for a pot belly, made his limbs look out of proportion, almost spidery. He's apparently like middle-aged. Yeah, too old to be middle-aged, too young to be elderly. Okay. And has definitely been outside because he has the sun-weathered skin.
Yeah, I thought my image for him was more heavyset from earlier readings, but this time I got very much a more I think it's Sword in the Stone, the animated, with Merlin. Like I've got that Merlin now is a bit more my Ferris, but yeah. So it's because he's like this. I mean, obviously that Merlin is older, clearly older, but with the like stick limbs and the pot belly and stuff, So
yeah, I don't remember that. I have to go look it up. But another thing that Ferris has is his. It was a wooden cane with a crystal on top. And it could be a weapons crystal from a ship's light cannon is the size of a man's clenched fist. And that crystal is important.
Right.
Or at least his cane is important.
It is a weapon. It's a wizard staff. So.
All right. And Grimm trying to be polite as Ferris is talking about, he's not delirious, is he? No, Master, he's not delirious. And Grimm says, "We haven't met, sir. I'm afraid you have the advantage of me." And Ferris says, "Yes, we did tomorrow."
Right.
And no, you aren't. And the last of the matters for debate, perhaps. What do you think, Folly? We meet tomorrow. We did meet tomorrow. He's very insistent on this.
They will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess as someone who like can see time, it can be a little, if that's like integrated into your brain, it makes sense to talk like that.
Yeah, there's such an emphasis on the etherealists. What they do, it makes sense to them, but only to them. And so you have to figure out what they're doing. And like this is a really good introduction, I think, of both what Folly says and responds to, and how she responds to Ferris, and how he talks. It's very particular, but you can actually like track what's going on in their brains. Of Folly says he doesn't realize that Captain Grimm is quite uncomfortable because he doesn't know anyone's name. And Ferris says it's untrue. Well, he knows his own name, and now he knows yours, and or something like so. Like he knows some people's names. It's just not that he doesn't know everyone's. And the particularness of that, of the pedantic rhetoric, is what Ferris latches onto. It's what he always latches onto, and he's going back and forth with Gwen.
Right.
Yeah. To me, it's.
I think if you weren't careful, this could be one of those things. Would be a little bit on the. A little bit on the romanticization of autism kind of thing that happens a lot in fan fiction. But I think Jim manages to pull it off where it doesn't feel like that. These characters are just, they do have real flaws. They are quirky, they are funny, they are powerful, they are sensible. But they also kind of feel the burden of their quirks. They don't like having the quirks. They just have them. That's just the way of life.
The scene where Bridget realizes that she talks to the crystals because she cannot talk to her, but she wants to talk to her, and like when she has this whole interaction, and it really like how much of a relief it is to Folly, I think exemplifies that well, right? Like,
right.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Grimm is trying to get questions, and Ferris says, well, "You have questions, and I have answers. Let's see if they match." And Grimm says, "Have I you to thank for caring for me?" And Ferris says, "Damn, I was going to say strawberries. They don't match."
Right.
You're not very good at this game, Grimm Captain. But the short story is he was poisoned, and Ferris was the only person in the Spire who'd be able to help him, and somehow Bayard knows him. And so, yes, Ferris had to employ his skills to rectify that poison, which he only knew from like 20-something years ago, and never thought it would come in handy later. Grimm says, "Am I in any danger? You're dead as a stone, man." Huh? I was like, "Well, no, not actually, not remotely. But for any purposes of this conversation, yes, you've clouded the issue. I should check your wound." And so Ferris walks out of the room, closes the door, and Grimm is like, "What am I doing?" He's going to like try to sit, and he's stuck in a halfway position. Ferris tells him to stop moving. And Ferris is like, "Okay, you're good." And I'm trying to get back in through the door, and he can't open the fucking doorknob.
Right.
Blasted things. He used to be able to do them when he was younger.
Confounding thing. Why do you mock me? All right. So why Ferris is helping him is he eventually says, because Francis Madison Grimm, we've come to the end. The end of what? Of the beginning, of course. The end of the beginning. Because he's got to be the cryptic, know-it-all wizard that cannot give any answers. All right. So we've made it to chapter 9. Isn't it wonderful?
Hooray.
Right. And it starts with Gwen and Benedict bickering with each other of, "I can't believe you're going along with this. Oh, please, now you're just teasing me." It's like, but Raoul seemed very insistent because Raoul is a cat, and that cat is going to be the second, and this is a travesty, therefore they have to intervene. Because that's what Gwen thinks she has to do every way.
When, like, I guess she's the personification of a busybody. Pretty much. A smoother.
Yeah, that's one. It's a very kind way of putting it. She's a smoother. And she insists, of course not, there are no cats in House Lancaster. And Benedict is laughing at her. It says, "I've never seen one there. point is, Benny, if I spent a lifetime thinking they were little more than clever beasts, you can be sure that many others have as well. And the word has spread. Everyone in the Hab will be watching the duel today because this is a wreck and it's preposterous, ridiculous. But this is another one of those moments of like Gwen and Benedict, or at least Gwen and somebody, she needs to have a foil to be able to, of like poking all of the assumptions that she has of the world to then understand that where she's wrong, where she might be right, and where she needs to go.
And I have a straight man.
Yes. And she really cares about Bridget, and she wants to help the name of Tagwin survive the day and all that stuff. And they get into the politics of it. Right. So House Tagwin, House Astor, they've done the math, well, 2/3 of it anyway, because there's the other consideration of like, what about the cats? Now the cats are a political entity of themselves. They're making a stake here, and she's again dismissing them just because they're cats. And so she has to think of what their political movement is. And she realizes that Benedict is actually rather clever in terms of politics. And how does he know so much when he so pointedly stays out of it? He knows how to stay out of it by knowing enough. All right. But then they have to get breakfast because Benedict is hungry.
That's his secret. He's always hungry.
I mean, always. Yeah.
Right.
Every hour on the hour.
Yes. But he tries to protest and says he doesn't have any money, but she has lots, and she's going to smooth her way into getting him fed because he doesn't like the fact that he has to eat more than a normal person. All right. They go to the stall that has all the...
And there's a palpable embarrassment there, too. Again, get to this whole very mannered, straight-up society. Everyone's kind of going to stick up with butt. And that's which makes the reveal of Cavendish later on so great. Maybe I think it's later on that she plays with that idea is the most dangerous person in the entire book.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. They go to a food stand that has the sausage dumplings that they all really like. They're not open yet, but Gwen, having a lot of money, is going to pay them extra to open early and make them special orders.
Smoothing.
Yeah, she doesn't give any consideration to the amount of money she wastes. Like, her job is not to save money. Her job is to make things happen.
Money is her superpower. That, and stubbornness is the word that comes to mind, but directness is probably better, where it's just like, so, because stubbornness is more a defensive measure, but hers is, she's a knife.
Determination.
So, yeah.
Obstinate.
So,
directness is her direction. But it's her determination of she's not going to walk in a different direction because there's a wall in the way.
Right.
It's just like,
literally she couldn't even leave her house through the front door. So
no, she left the house through the front door. Her mother didn't. Right. She's the softer version. All right. And there's some banter back and forth, and then they get interrupted by someone who's incredibly rude.
Total asshole.
Yeah. And then he disappears. What the hell?
And then while they're waiting to get to the duel, she challenges him to a duel. So
yes. He's a bookish looking man of middle years, and he's like, I just don't see how that's going to work. And he's like on looking at his whatever papers, and he's scribbling, and he's like ink stains all over the place. His hair is rumpled, his clothing is non-remarkable, and he just barges his way through and is like, give me the things, and it's like, oh yes, it's fine, hi, and it's just very rude, and Gwen can't handle that. And the Beaches, the couple that runs the food stand, calls him Addie. Curse of the academically inclined mind, I'm afraid, is why he's been up all night. Now he's trying to get breakfast, or is it lunch? He's lost track of time. And Gwen is trying to prod him for his attention so he would treat her like a proper lady that she is. And he's like, yes. And she does it again. And he's like, out with it, man. Just like speak to me directly. It's stupid. And if you have something on your mind, just say it. I'm just a bit pressed for time to dance about. And Benedict, because he knows who that is, just like, maybe be calm. Maybe don't do anything. No, she says, I am faced with a distasteful quandary. And Benedict's like, but no. And Addie turns and looks at her. It's like, whether to settle for a tongue lashing for someone so impolite or to take offense at this slight and demand satisfaction as is my right. challenging him to a duel.
Satisfaction, I say.
Yes. You're considering challenging me to a duel. And it's like, well, I would have your name first. And then he asks, why does it matter? It's like, well, if you haven't been taught polite manners, then you're just somebody I have to take pity on. And if you have been taught the right manners because you're of a high house, then I must challenge you to a duel. Because with great power comes great responsibility. Of course, Butcher had to put that line in.
Right.
When Addie just becomes very entertained with everything. It's like, oh, this is interesting. This is how entertaining. And he turns to Benedict, says, would you please introduce me to your cousin? And that's when Gwen's like, what?
Right.
And Benedict, you really must learn to shut your mouth from time to time. You'll taste less shoe leather. And he introduces her to His Majesty Addison, Orson, Magnus, Jeremiah, Albion, first citizen and Spirek of Albion. That's a lot of names.
It's a lot of names, like a proper wizard. And I just want to know, like, what each of them means in this
Right.
context, right? Like, why Jeremiah? You know, like for those in the UK, like they might as well have called him Kevin. You know, like, so just
Addison?
well,
Orson?
I mean, yeah,
I don't know.
like
Magnus
I
is
can
fine because Magnus sounds cool.
right, like I can think of reasons why 3 or 4 of those names would have existed, but when you get to Jeremiah, that's like the clear outlier. It's like when Dumbledore gives his name, right? It's Brian, I think, is the one that stands out for him, right? Where it's like, because you've got Dumbledore's all these wizardly names, and then he even he pauses Brian Dumbledore, so I just kind of feel like that's what we're going with, and I'm just like, but why? So
Yeah. Well, so some of them, I feel like Jeremiah stands out to me as it seems explicitly biblical, and they
Sure.
dance around religion in this book. They don't fully describe what it is, other than like the
God in
creator,
heaven.
God in
God in
heaven,
heaven,
right?
the builders.
Archangels, yeah.
Yes, but they have angels. They have archangels. It's like, what do they?
Right.
What does that mean? Name to them?
Right.
Oh man, I want you to read
And
the
is
next
it
book.
technology? Is it a creature? Is it, like, because to me, I think, I'm thinking it's some kind of technology, but it's etheric based. And so to them, it's just like, it's an angel, and whatever, but yeah.
But maybe.
Right.
It could be Uriel.
Right. Could be just literally an angel. Yeah.
Yeah. And as Gwen's face is like becoming so red and hot, it's melting. And she's just like, you don't look like your portrait.
Right.
That was a very long time ago. And now she's at a loss for words and she's stammering. And he's being Addison. What the fuck I would call him? He's being very polite and just, you look like a perfect image of your mother from however long years ago when she was your age. Or breakfast, lunch, or something. Lunch fist. Would you two care to join me? And now she can't refuse, now that she's insulted him.
You can insult her too, though, to be fair.
Yes. And so he's going to he's not actually taken any form of offense. But in the mathematical bout, what she's done is horrible. And what she says to Benedict is, I am a perfect idiot. And the Spirek looks at Benedict and he says, that's Gwenish for I apologize, I think. All right. Then they have food and blah, blah, blah. The discussion turns to Benedict's history. And this is when we get a little bit of what he had served in the past year or two and how he gotten injured. And what Gwen had been told is that he got a small slice on his arm from a sparring accident. And no, what happened was that he had like busted down the door in like a SWAT fashion and killed 2 people that had injured his others and like nearly had his arm ripped off and was now recovering or something like that. But Benedict doesn't like anybody to know anything of his abilities, supernatural or not, and so just lied to his family. And now Gwen has something over him. And he received the Order of the Spire. I assumed that you knew, the Spire Arc said, because that sounds really important. But Benedict doesn't like to wear anything like that it's for a purpose. He doesn't want to just wear it every day. Later, he says something of like, it's only a protection if he can use it on the times it needs protection.
I always took it more as a humility, but yeah, like he actually understands the benefits of keeping that kind of shit secret, so.
A little bit column A, a little bit column B.
Sure.
Yeah, it was
So
a
he
line
is,
from Warrior Born.
humble, like, for sure. That
Right.
is like a good defining characteristic.
It was a line from Warrior Born when he was describing, like, he stands out no matter what for being Warrior Born. And then if he is wearing the medal of the Spire of the Order of the Spire, it makes people treat him even differently. They might not be as rude to him for being Warrior Born, but they have to take notice of him, and he doesn't want people to take notice out of a sense of protection. And maybe it's like the way a cat likes to hide in the background. So he'll only use it when it's called for. Okay. And Spyro turns back to Gwen. He's like, "Oh, may I call you Gwen?" It's like, "Of course. How could I ever tell this person no?" It's like, "But you must not call me sire. Addison will do nicely." And she just says, "Sire?" She can't handle it. And he talks about the protocol of all the duels in the monarchy and the way that they have to be polite. All of this rules of manners. That's the word that, like Ben was alluding to, that they have to go within. It's their ritualized form of dueling with each other, but it's also really clunky and not very nice. And can we just do away with some of it? He says his position is largely obsolete. He just kind of hides in his library and his books, and Gwen's father and everyone else on the council basically deal with all of the day-to-day, and he doesn't have to do anything. That's why he likes it.
Yeah. It's it's the post, like, singular leader, like, what I mean, he's called a Spire arc, right? But like equivalent would be like a king, or like with Gaius, being the
it's a post-democracy king, but still only
Right.
just. He's definitely still has a lot of fingers in the pie. Right?
Right. Well, it seems like it's happened, either in his lifetime or, maybe just the previous generation at most, right? It's very recently, and somehow happened peacefully, right? Because that's not typical, like just look at Codex Alera if you want an example of a violent version, so.
I mean, if you look at the Spanish spire that I can't remember the name of right now for some reason.
Aurora. It's also right there on the screen.
They still
came
have
prepared today.
They still have a monarchy, right? Like so.
True. Yeah.
Monarchy doesn't seem to, on its own, mean anything because of all the details of it could be behind the monarchy, republic, or whatever. All right, but
the rule by king.
The Spire arc is kind of prodding at Gwen of like, why did she decide to join the Guard when she's the only child of the Lancasters and therefore could beg out of it, not have to do anything? Well, she would feel bad about not participating and doing her duty. And he does something of like, it's all very dangerous, and there's 40 new recruits, and there's like 3,000 other people in the Spire, and why do you do this? She says something of, she's trying to apologize for her rudeness, but it's like, if I had known who you were, I wouldn't have behaved that way. And then he says something like, if you know who I am, why do I get treated any differently? Why do you treat this person different than that person? They should all be the same. And she's like, well, yeah, but you are God King person. Of course I have to treat you differently. Oh. But he knows that she's been involved in the duel, and he approves of her helping because she doesn't know it yet, but he's involved with the cats, and he wants the cats to be able to have their position politically in the Spire as it is. And so just like, go make sure this duel that you've arranged is going to work out nicely. And now that she has the blessing of the Spire, actually, they're a little bit less worried about it all. All right. So chapter 10, we get to Justin's new favorite person, Bridget.
Yeah. She's just the latest. So I like all of the characters, right? They're all competent except for Gwen. She's got a different kind of competence, like like if you think about it, right? Like Bridget, stays within her skill set, which isn't a lot, but she doesn't overextend herself. She doesn't go out and beyond and whatever until she has to. And that's when she does it. Gwen is like, assumes she's Lord and Commander of everything, and is just running around throwing elbows even when she doesn't understand it, and Benedict is amazingly more competent than he lets everybody realize, let alone, we know Grimm and Raoul and on and on and on. But yeah, like, Bridget is a solid character. So definitely worthy of respect.
Mm-hmm. At least that's what Raoul thinks, considering she now has the name.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. She does get captured more than anybody else, I think, right? So, that's why the tagline there, it's been 0 hours since she was kidnapped, because,
Yeah, I guess twice. Yeah. No one else got captured twice. So Bridget is trying to prepare for this duel that's going to happen imminently, and Raoul is telling her to stop being worried, straighten your back, lift your chin, show no fear. And she's just fidgeting, but then Esterbrook is right there. This is only like the second time second time out of 3 that we get to see him, but he's still great. And you just like, that's very good advice. And she's surprised that he speaks cat. Not all Warriorborn do speak cat, I assume, but most of them seem to.
Right.
All right. But it's very important. And I don't know who decided or got it arranged. I feel someone made it arranged that someone who can speak cat was having to officiate the duel because he was able to hear and speak to Raoul.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I didn't think about that. I guess probably Longfinger. But
probably someone did something to make sure that it was happening that way. Longfinger makes sense. Spire Arc, and also I don't know. I could also put it up to Lady Lancaster just deciding of like something's happening, you be involved, whether she knows about the cats or not. Of just like somehow Gwen's involved.
Well, everybody knows that Raoul's the second because that rumor has been going around, right? Which is why this duel has drawn even more attention than it would otherwise. It's
a very good point.
Yeah.
And so they could have decided. What Esterbrook says is that he was just on rotation for whoever has to have this duty. And so it just happened to happen on his day. It's like, I don't think so.
Yeah. That would be a coincidence. And we don't believe in those. So, what a coincidence. I was just going to say that. So
it's a weird coincidence.
No, it's just a very old joke. So
Oh, and Bridget is not feeling, she doesn't feel confident in any way. And she says, I apologize. I don't have any experience in this matters. And he says, wise people don't, because you shouldn't be trying to kill each other. And Esterbrook's job in this is to get them to stop trying to fight, at least ritualistically. And so what if someone doesn't follow the rules? Esterbrook is there to stop them. It is within the rights of my office to take any steps necessary to do so, up to and including the taking of life. Duels are serious business, though these arrogant sprats growing up these days don't seem to think so. They shouldn't be entered into lightly. Bridget asserts that they shouldn't exist at all. But then I guess the warrior side of it is that they serve a purpose. They let you solve some things of like questions of honor, like Grimm even was challenging Rook to a duel to the death.
Yeah,
it would solve some things just to be able to have it out.
I was threatening to bring trial by combat back to my last job, where it was like, I think you're wrong and I'm willing to fight you for it. I think there's room in society for that. So yeah.
Demand trial by combat. We'll take it to the manager. He'll officiate.
I mean, yeah, some people are just like, being one of them, some people are just so obstinate that words aren't going to convince them of the truth of the matter, right? And sometimes they think it's funny, and sometimes they think, whatever else may be going on. But if you threaten them with violence, usually that changes, So heaven forbid we get somebody built like Arnold Schwarzenegger who thinks that it's funny to just be obstinate, though, because that guy's going to just run everything. But
right, yeah. Yeah, that does seem to be the problem.
You murdered her.
Bridget says we shouldn't have duels because we're a civilized society. And Estabrook's like, how did you say that? We're a democracy. She's like, yes, that's civilized. And he says, this is just ritualized murder. We would elect someone, and if they do a bad job, we ritually cut off their head and castrate them, or cast them out.
We just cut off the guillotine part.
Yeah. We just do it with words and paper instead because they're Alarans.
But not really. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I think even the founding fathers called it that, right? Like it's a ritualized revolution. Every 4 years we have a peaceful revolution was the idea behind it. And it could completely turn the country upside down, but that's the peaceful way to do it, through the voice of the people rather than the pitchforks of the people. So.
And Bridget says, well, I've never thought of it that way. And Raoul says, it is one of the only things we respect of your people. Though, of course, cats can do it better. Except Raoul basically just does I'm bigger and stronger than you. I'm going to defeat you in a fight. Now I'm in control.
Right.
Yeah, they do it better. Trial by combat. Justin just explained this.
But not democracy. It's not the democracy part of it. They didn't do democracy. They did the combat.
Because trial by combat is better.
He didn't have time to call a vote, so he was being smoother.
Yeah, that's what Raoul is.
I think, and if Jim usually does a lot of homework on this kind of thing, and if it is what I think it is, then it would be kind of since Albion, England, New England, like New England, that kind of thing. It would be in the tradition of kind of American politics, which is more based on the British, which does have its own violent revolution. It's not just the French Revolution that's violent; it's also the regicide and Cromwell and all that. But then there's this kind of sense of a peaceful revolution and the glorious revolution, the consent of the people, and a very much Enlightenment constitutional monarchy kind of emerges in England. And that's it's very much the model, I think, that is the politics here in Albion. That very much that model of there's a sense where regicide is possible because regicide has happened, and so instead of actually killing somebody, we do the ritual. So I think that's where all those historical influences come from. Sorry.
It's okay.
History major coming in. Were you actually a history major?
Me? No, I was a history teacher for a while.
Yeah, I know, but I thought maybe if to be a history teacher, you would also have had a history major. And
No,
that was an expression I heard before.
I just like history.
That's the number one way to do it. So the main thing you can do with a history degree is teach history. So,
Yep. That was journalism.
Okay. So going back to the violence and the duel, Reggie, the bad guy, has shown up, and he's like, oh, it's about time we did this. And he's dismissive and insulting to Estabrook, not letting him introduce himself. It's just details. And then he sees Raoul. There she is, the little trog with her scavenger. And that is particularly bad insult to the cats. They don't want to be called scavengers. And so he's just directly pissed off Raoul way more than he should have. And Reggie confirmed his idiocy by bursting out in laughter at the angry cat. Is the kitty upset with me? Which just makes me think of Thomas. It's saying, like, is the evil kitty insulting me in my own house? Sorry. I really miss Cat Sith, that's all. But Bridget is trying to get Raoul to calm down because Reggie will be dealt with in the proper order of things. And she's looking to Estabrook to do all of the officiating. And he says, in accordance with Spire law, I beseech you both to resolve your differences in some less dangerous and destructive manner. And Reggie says, no, she insulted the honor of my house. She'll apologize for it, or I have the satisfaction here and now. And will Miss Tagwin offer an apology? Let me be clear, I never offered House Astor an insult, nor did I insult Reginald. I simply described him in accurate terms. If he finds himself insulted by the truth, it's hardly my concern.
She's got a point.
Down. Do you think she's for real there? Do you think she's for real? She doesn't realize what she's doing.
Oh, I think
she
she
better
knows
understand what
doing.
she's doing.
Yeah,
she's not that much
just
of an
spent
idiot.
several weeks training, so
Just
And
rubbing it in.
Yeah.
Before Big Gwen got involved, she basically expected a really small apology to just be able to make the whole thing go away. She's not against apologizing, but it became a bigger thing, and now she has to defend herself and her house, which includes her father and her cats. So, but in any case, I stand by what I said. Truth does not simply become untruth because its existence upsets the sign of a high house. And so this is where the politeness and the formality tends to go up against reality in a way that causes a lot of conflict with someone who's just like not dealing with it in any way. All right. And so they proceed, and Miss Tagwin is your second present, and Raoul says, I am here in Cat. And Reggie tries to make it as a point of order that she doesn't have a second because you can't accept the cat as doing it. And so therefore the whole duel is just going to be called off, right? At least that's his gambit. And he says, the law states that a duelist second must be a citizen of the Habel in good standing with the law. And I see no such person here. And let's see. I insist that she be prosecuted for acting in contempt of Spire law, her house fined appropriately. But Esterbrook is prepared, which means somebody did something to make him correct in place. When it comes to supporting the letter and spirit of the law, your dedication and zeal are selectively remarkable. Here in my possession is an affidavit reviewed and notarized by Judge Helena Solomon. It states that one Raoul, heir apparent of Silent Paws, the rest of his house has pledged his support to His Majesty Addison Orson Magnus Jeremiah Albion. Such a mouthful. Further, the affidavit states that he resides in the Habel Morning, no outstanding fines or warrants. He is a citizen in good standing. So now Cat is the equivalent of House Astor. And all of the onlookers, of which they made a very large point of, like, that it's a big crowd, and it keeps growing, and it keeps growing. There's a lot of people watching this. It's like they now know cats are citizens. And Bridget's looking out in the crowd, and she sees someone she doesn't recognize, but he's described as being kind of middle-aged and bookish, and he's not up in a furor the way everyone else was and being shocked. He's looking straight at Bridget, and he winks. And she's like, who would do that? That's very forward of him. Of course, it's Addison. Right. So there's back and forth of cats are not eligible. According to the law, we're going to continue on with the officiating. And Reggie says, you make a mockery of a noble tradition, beast man. Because, of course, he's a bad guy. He's got to rub everything in.
Right.
But Esterbrook is just doing his job. And that's when Gwen and Benedict show up, loudly making a scene in their own polite way of, are we too late? I do hope we haven't missed the display of courage and grace that this little event promises to be. Goodness, Reggie, there you are, with 6 friends. Isn't that quite a lot? And Benedict's like, how about I take your friends? Do we go stand over in the corner to make sure nothing happens?
Right.
Yeah. The 5 of you and I leave Reggie and his second to this business. I'll buy you each a round, and you can decide which fight you want to watch. And Gwen says, oh, which fight? What do you mean? The one on the stage or the one we're going to have in the back alley?
Subtle.
Yeah. And Gwen joins in a little bit. It's like, I have this lovely new gauntlet, and I've never actually used it on anyone. And Esterbrook just coughs politely. And she says, oh, Piffle, I didn't use it on you. I used it near you.
True, by the way. Technically true.
Yes. She's very, very
pedantic.
sharp with the technicals there. And as they form, like, forcibly say, of course, the young man has no intention of dishonoring the House of Astor this day with any such action. And Bridget says, unless he's afraid of me, which just by having said it is already, she's winning the battle of the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Gwen turns to Bridget and says, if you find it convenient, make him cry. There's such a nice turnout for it. Right. And Benedict tells her to breathe. And just kind of relax, remember all the lessons, and everyone's all gearing up for just to watch everything. And where will Raoul stand? Because as he's a cat, he can't just stand with the rest of them. He won't be able to see. And this is another reason of like Esterbrook was important in this because he understands and he cares to the letter of the law of what he can do. He cares about the cat, can speak it. And so he picks up, one of the large chimes in its heavy metal frame. It must have weighed 300 pounds if an ounce, and the rather lean-looking man moved it as if it had been a living room chair, putting on the nearest corner of the platform. 300 pounds, not even bothering, just so the cat can sit on its perch to watch. Bridget's getting very nervous because it's all happening and everybody's watching. And Raoul says, "Little mouse, remember who you are. This creature wants to take it from you. Do not let him." Victory isn't about the quantity of what you know, but the quality. And a lot of preparation. And then an air raid siren happens. And just cuts off the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which
Pretty
is
much easy to shortcut it.
so frustrating to me.
Yes.
I wanted to see the outcome of that duel. Like you set up all this duel stuff, and it goes nowhere.
Get a
What the
little-
heck? Is it just world
Just get a
building?
little
I was so
extra, get a little
Of course.
teased, you know.
What follows is great. I'm not saying I love the book, but it was such a hard
It's a
left
very-
at Whiplash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic, right? I can't remember the first half of the line, but the the ending of it is, it's something like whenever you need to move the plot along, just have a man with a gun walk in, paraphrased, deeply paraphrased, but I feel like that's kind of the thing. It's like, yeah, well, we're kind of over this duel business, so fire the missiles, so
I had my fun talking about it. I'm done. No
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
No!
On the narrative structure, if he had gone into the duel, then we'd have to have a resolution for it. But right now, as it is, it's unresolved. And Reggie still has reason to be unhappy with Bridget. Bridget's now in a completely different position at the end of the book. And if he tries to go after her, then he puts himself in a much weaker position of challenging someone who just helped save the Spire and probably has tons of commendations. But I think he is now this generation's enemy in the same way that Rook is, or similar to.
I think that's giving him a lot of credit. Like he's definitely a Malfoy type of character, right? Where he's the sniveling little kid and he's rich and gonna throw that around and whatever. But like, because what happens next, right? He gets wounded and they have to save him. Right.
No, that's Benny.
So-
That's his friend, not Reggie.
was
yeah,
it?
no, it's his
Okay.
second.
How
Okay.
dare you, Justin, make
I
all
know.
these Harry Potter references, and you
I
haven't
know.
even read the books.
I know. How dare I stand where he stood? So, look, man, I reference things. That's what I do. So, and I've seen the movies. It's fine. So, but I mean, you get this. Find me a better childhood bully analog, from the last
That's fair.
generation. So,
That
but-
I take umbrage to the statement there that
Like,
you've
more
watched the
umbrage?
movies and that is fine.
yeah, I know, right?
I
That's,
picked that. I
amen.
picked the word on purpose. Okay, that was intentional.
Those are fighting words, and I will fight you, Viking brother. So, like, I am not such a villain as she.
Yeah, you should. They are. I just rewatched them because it's Christmas, and I had
Sure.
to go and listen to a book after because I was reminded about how much better the books are than the movies.
Sure.
They are good. You're missing out. Bit dressed, and you can do this too.
Yeah, I don't want to get canceled, so all the thoughts in my head I'm just gonna not say, but that's what we should do an episode on sometime. So,
The Harry Potter movies?
well, it's her specifically and that whole drama, but
Mm.
Oh yeah, that would go well.
yeah,
I
exactly.
foresee no troubles coming.
So,
from that.
so Andreas is just over here ready to slap down Death of the Author, and we can move on. So,
But I'm
I've
more
activated this trap
but I
card.
more believe in word like Word of the Author than Death of the Author. But she single-handedly made me reconsider that.
right.
Not that I've changed my mind, but it was not even a question for me before. So yeah. Anyway, we were talking about not Coda Calera, Aeronaut's Windlass.
All right. We've got 5 minutes for chapter 11. Let's do this. Grim returns to Predator, and he's yelling for Greedy, and Kettle saying the captain on deck, and then Kettle's just like, Captain, you are wounded. He's like wrapped in bandages all around his arm. He's got the a sling. He's still wearing the clothes that he had bled on, and so they look terrible. And he just says, "Oh yes, something came out of the vents and tried to make a meal out of me. My own fault for taking a shortcut." And Kettle says, "Doesn't Habel Morning employ verminocitors anymore?" Which might be the first reference of them in the book.
Thinking about it, this book, like Grimm, very much has a very bad, not good Harry Dresden day. He doesn't get to rest, like
Right.
like this whole thing, like, and but he has, like, unlike Harry, he has to hide it. Harry just goes on and grumbles,
Sure.
like, but he has to be like, yeah, I have to look like a captain. I have to be proper. The men has to believe in me. Doesn't even get to grumble.
It's a great observation, because, like, I wouldn't have otherwise. Nobody in particular hit the Harry Dresden vibes necessarily, but Grimm is probably the closest, right? He even, he walks around all but with, a Desert Eagle in his hand for half of the thing. Like, sometimes it's a rifle, it's obviously a gauntlet, sword, whatever. But yeah, like he's the one that I see doing that sort of stuff. But yeah, interesting.
He has the very good, not bad, not great day. Like Harry has the weekend, and I would say he has the Harry vibe in the sense of he will do the thing he think is right,
Sure.
like always. Like, he's the chaotic good for sure character, though the whole group is kind of chaotic good in a way. They're like, we'll do what our moral says is correct.
It does often come back to harm Grimm for his right decisions more than others so far.
Yes, I mean that much. Like the whole, oh, you haven't gotten that explained yet. I can't say that. Fuck.
Yeah, I was going to quibble. Like, some of them might be lawful. I'm just going to go out there and say, like, just because they don't always fall in line with the expectations doesn't mean that they don't have a code or
but
a straight and narrow.
Lawful isn't to your lawful. I mean, maybe we'll quibble here about the definition. Lawful is to the actual rules of the realm / authorities law.
Oh yeah, is it?
I think that's what I think.
What about paladins?
Well, they follow the rules of whatever creed that's set up, like if their order or whatever. Like,
but if you're a paladin in a tyranny, then you're not following the laws of the land. That doesn't make you chaotic good.
I think lawful is following rules set up by someone else, not your own personal greed. Personally, I think that's what chaotic good is. Like, that's why I think Harry Dresden is chaotic good. Or neutral good.
I don't know that it gets into intentions. I think it gets into the origin of the law. Is the origin of the law the actual good, or is the origin of the law just the state? So that there can be lawful evil. I mean, I don't know. Is there lawful evil in the new D&D 5? There used to be in old D&D.
There is.
They got rid of them, though, right?
They're moving away from the alignment system because there have been decades of arguments like this one. But
yeah, like, what even is true neutral? What, are you just going to let babies be eaten because yesterday you let them be saved? Like,
no, it's not that simplistic. Like, true neutral is the ultimate, like, I don't care, I'm just trying to, like, find my own way in the world type of thing.
Oh, yeah,
and so like, true neutral would be like, you could almost say it would be the captain from Codex Alera, right, of the ship. He could be true neutral because because he doesn't care about doing the right thing or the wrong thing. He cares about money.
My exposure to this system was always Baldur's Gate, so I always assumed true neutral meant druid, like completely yin yang Tao. So I thought of more of it.
But there's nuance, right? For sure. So and I think as much as anything, like, it gets informed by your actions, which is where it gets to be problematic sometimes, right? Because it's like, if you do in some of the rule sets and optionally and that sort of thing, like, if you do enough evil things, your alignment gets pushed because you're clearly not acting in your alignment, right? So it gets informed by your actions rather than entirely your internal, whatever. But yeah, I personally, like latched onto the idea that like lawful can be an internal code much more than whatever the laws of the land are, because otherwise literally you could cross the border and suddenly you're not lawful again. That doesn't really make sense to me.
To the thing you hold in authority. But I think we've had this when we talked about alignments and Dresden at some point, where it's like my read on Harry is that he is. I can't remember now if the argument I had was neutral or chaotic good, but he will always do what he thinks is right.
Sure.
Which I think is either chaotic or neutral good.
As Butcher's point is, everyone's doing what they think is right.
Yeah.
How many people are doing it just to be evil without an ulterior purpose? Like even Nicodemus, he's doing evil things.
Cavendish is evil just to be evil.
This goes back to Aristotle, right?
We don't know.
You always all know and want the good. The problem is that we are sometimes seeing or identifying something as good when it is not. So the issue is not that we don't want the good. The issue is that we misidentify what is good.
I mean, there's even a line that Cavendish seems to be traumatized by something that happened, and she's trying to make a future that she wants, and she probably thinks that is good in whatever fashion that means. And at best, or at worst, probably similar to how NVIDIA, he said that it was a rationalization for her to like, what I'm doing is good. It's also what she needed to do for herself to protect herself.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so self-preservation was the good and an actual good. It's just sometimes you choose, there's competing goods, and you misidentify which good is the most important good in that particular situation.
Yes. And so but no one is like cackling of, I'm so evil, look, I'm doing the evil thing and kicking puppies.
NVIDIA was. Yeah.
The way we've been doing lawful evil, it's when we played the actual D&D, it's like they use the rules of whatever for their own or for evil gains.
I mean, it can be like lawful evil, simply put, is the tyrant, right? Like you set out the laws, you demand everybody to follow the rules, and if you don't, you come down over hard on it. That's where the slavery, the amputations, like, oh, you stole something, well, the law says to cut off your hand. Like it's almost like the laws are protecting you from the evilness of what you're doing, right? Where it's like, look, I'm not doing this to you, the law says that I have to do this to you. On a lower scale, obviously at the top you've got the tyrant making the rules in the first place. If you want to go Baldur's Gate, there's examples of that. Right. So
yeah, I think that's the question of what is individual righteousness, or what is an individual codes versus social codes versus large-scale corporate or political codes, and which wins out in a situation is a very interesting question. And I think since we're talking from the D&D perspective, which is very medieval, we can look at the medieval side of things, where the goal was the preservation of harmonies and justice and peace in various realms of authority that were non-competitive, or ideally you're supposed to be non-competitive, and that positive vision of multiple authorities, all of them accepted, and the idea of all of them was to exist in harmony with all of the others, was the political ideal, which of course they fell short from, but that was kind of the governing structure of the Middle Ages, and I think resolves this dilemma. If it's individual code versus the code of the king, which one's out, but that's fun political theory. I don't know if it has any basis or possibility in reality now. It's a different question. But the framework here is in this book is not so much that D&D style thing, but I think it's more the Enlightenment king of with consent by the governed, and the king is a figurehead, but there's still power and influence behind having a figurehead, and becomes an issue of social norms and who's in charge of the social norms and who can mess with those social norms. So there's 3 or 4 different levels of authority, and whoever gets to use all of them is the winner. And then on top of that, it's not just social and political and familial. There's also like ethereal, and so the etherealists are the other power broker in the society.
Okay.
The manipulators. That's Cavendish. She's a manipulator.
I mean, they are a power, but like there's 3 of them as far as we know in the Spire, right? So it's just like it's hard to see them as like a faction or something that you would need to concern yourself with. Like if Cavendish wasn't there trying to pull strings and that sort of thing,
rather than like overt power, there's a lot of manipulation, and etherealist, at least Cavendish, is very much a manipulator, as we'll see.
right? She just has a couple of tools that literally nobody else would have, right? Like her whole thing, she's using her far sight to her own machinations. She's feeding that information to the Aurorans, and she was able to act as a beacon for their ships. Otherwise, their entire operation wouldn't have worked.
What do you mean with far sight?
What the same thing that Ferris is using. I meet you tomorrow.
She doesn't have
explicitly. She cannot see futures. Yes, that's the thing.
They have conversations about this. She's at least trying to accomplish.
She's trying to accomplish something, but when she takes and I'll read it when we get to that point of when she takes the items from Ferris and she gives away something, and Ferris says, you never learned to see, and she said, I am making the future that I want, not the futures that you see, and so it's her admission that she cannot see futures, so she's forcing it as best as she can.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I obviously got the opposite thing on that because I recently just read that too, and I'm like, they talk about it, so yeah.
But whatever issues that they had in their relationship of it seems like she felt kind of inadequate because she couldn't see futures the way that he could, and now Folly is learning, and so she's falling more in the steps of Ferris. This in some form of an inferiority that she's trying to overcome by being on top of the charge of everyone else.
Right. Literally also a puppet master, at least in Sark's case, and, with the spiders. So,
yeah.
What do we do? 3 chapters today?
Yeah, we'll call it that.
You said we were at 13% earlier. What are we at now?
19%.
I read the Olympian Fair way too early. I'm gonna have to reread it by the time we get there.
It's part of why I haven't been rushing. Like I've got a third of it left, and I'm still gonna be, way early.
I've read the second book, and there's things I want to say in book 1 here regarding to book 2 so much, but I can't.
Control yourself. This is why I haven't read the book yet. I'll wait until we get later.
I'll try and get to it shortly.
Some of it is just observations. That's just like, it's not the specific spoilers, just my own theory. But I still feel like it's so right that I would be spoiling it. Like
probably would be. We'll get there eventually. It'll be on the calendar. And so next week with Dresden, are we still in full moon, or can we move on to Grave Peril?
Thought we still had to do full moon. We had to like tie it all together.
Okay.
What we had talked
about. Your
about.
Script. But in 2 weeks from now, on the 6th, is Christmas. At least our Christmas, the Secret Santa. So everybody can chime in for that one, and we'll go back to Cinder Spires.
When is it being drawn?
What do you mean drawn? You should already have your name.
No, I don't think I do.
Go check again. There's a button to like draw your name. So
I will go check again then.
There's
and that's why I didn't get a Christmas gift this year.
Right.
No, I did.
Still got some time because it doesn't need to show up before Monday, because it just needs to be there before the 6th. But everybody should have a name. Everybody's included. It's on the calendar. It's on the 6th. And that's when we do our end of 2023 Secret Santa everything. Woo.
That is a Saturday, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Christmas happens Saturday for us. Whatever. All right. Otherwise, give us some money. Join us on Discord. There will be a gift war soon, I'm sure, because somebody's going to have an opinion about Star Trek, and it's going to be wrong no matter what it is.
It's every day of the week. What are you talking about?
Exactly.